Welcome, viewer, for turning into First News Broadcast TV channel, where we dispense helpful to political and global awareness on both formers and current affairs, building community news revolutionary commitment of our world. All right, we move on to latest breaking news. Here are today's update. It was Harris's first public appearance over after brief remarks. Then Kamala Harris backed by Nancy Pelosi as key Democrats line up to endorse Vice President. I never hear gratitude from Harris, says Vance. Vance hits out at Biden for dropping out. I don't like Biden and I don't like his policies, Vance says. He references Biden stepping aside as a presidential candidate. What is going on in this country is disgraceful. He claims that the decision for Biden to pull out of the 2024 election was made in a smoke-filled room of Democratic Party elites rather than voters. That is the threat to democracy, not the Republican Party, he says. It's a direct response to a talking point often deployed by Democratic politicians who warned that a second Trump presidency would be a threat to democracy due to his actions on January 6, 2021. He then accuses Harris, Democratic senators, and the media of lying about Biden being up for the job of president, when everyone who saw Biden knew he wasn't capable of doing the job and that they said nothing to the public until he became political deadweight. That is an insult to voters, Vance says. Vance is now talking about prioritizing American energy, repeating the common Republican refrain, "Drill, baby, drill," a reference to support for oil and gas drilling. The crowd responds to the line with loud applause. The vast majority of Republicans support the continuation of fossil fuel use in the U.S., while many Democrats want to see fossil fuel use decreased or phased out. Sticking to economic talking points, Vance then goes on to call for drugs such as aspirin to be manufactured in the United States instead of China. Switching to Biden's decision to step aside, Vance then hits out at Vice President Harris, endorsed by Biden to take on Trump and Vance in November, and says she talks about U.S. history with condemnation rather than appreciation. If you want to lead this country, you should feel that gratitude, and I never hear that from her, he says. Vance wraps up first rally as Trump's running mate. Vance has ended his remarks, but before he left the podium, he mentioned the recent attempted assassination of Trump, saying he was upset by the close call on Trump's life. He cares about human beings. He is not the caricature of the lie that the media has told that he is, Vance says. Vance hits out at Biden for dropping out. I don't like Biden and I don't like his policies, Vance says. He references Biden stepping aside as a presidential candidate. What is going on in this country is disgraceful. He claims that the decision for Biden to pull out of the 2024 election was made in a smoke-filled room of Democratic Party elites rather than voters. That is the threat to democracy, not the Republican Party, he says. It's a direct response to a talking point often deployed by Democratic politicians who warned that a second Trump presidency would be a threat to democracy due to his actions on January 6, 2021. He then accuses Harris, Democratic senators, and the media of lying about Biden being up for the job of president, when everyone who saw Biden knew he wasn't capable of doing the job and that they said nothing to the public until he became political deadweight. That is an insult to voters, Vance says. Vocal Biden supporter Fetterman backs Harris. Democratic Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, who has been one of the most vocal supporters of Biden staying in the presidential race in recent weeks, has endorsed Kamala Harris. Proud to support and be all in for the next president, he posted on social media. The message was posted alongside a banner which reads, "Let's win this. Harris for president." Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, has endorsed Kamala Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee. Today it is with immense pride and limitless optimism for our country's future that I endorse Vice President Kamala Harris for President of the United States. My enthusiastic support for Kamala Harris for president is official, personal, and political, she said in a statement. I have full confidence that she will lead us to victory in November. Colorado governor jokingly addresses VP job. Colorado Governor Jared Polis says he would be open to running for vice president if he was asked. Speaking to CNN, Polis says it isn't a conversation he was actively having. But he quipped, if they do the polling and it turns out that they need a 49-year-old, balding, gay Jew from Boulder, Colorado, They've got my number. Biden made the right decision, says Pence. Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence stands at the podium after announcing he will discontinue his presidential campaign during the Republican Jewish Coalition Annual Leadership Summit in Las Vegas, Nevada, U.S. October 28, 2023. Mike Pence says President Biden made the right decision in stepping down from re-election on Sunday and calls for both parties to project calm and strength. In a post on X, External, the former Republican vice president thanks Biden for putting the interests of our nation ahead of his own. He adds that now is the time for leaders in both parties to project calm and send a message of strength and resolve to America's friends and enemies alike that, whatever the state of our politics, the American people are strong and our American military stands ready to defend our freedom and our vital national interests anywhere in the world, but Pence does not mention Harris in his statement. Gretchen Whitmer asked if she'd take on VP role. As we've reported, the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, has endorsed Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate and is among those being touted as a potential vice president pick. She also announced in a post on social media, External, that she was proud to serve as co-chair of the Harris campaign. But when Whitmer was asked by WLNS 6 News whether she would take on the VP role if offered, the answer was no. "I'm not going anywhere," Whitmer said. "I'm not leaving Michigan." Young Delaware lifeguards not sure about Harris. Just up the beach from Joe Biden's Delaware holiday home, where he is still recovering from COVID, we bumped into a group of lifeguards. Michael Rodriguez, 22, on the right in the picture above, says he is in the military and while he might not agree with everything Joe Biden does, thinks that at the end of the day, the president probably should have stepped down. He says he is not a fan of Kamala Harris, arguing she incriminated a lot of people back in her time, referring to the vice president's previous tenure as a prosecutor in California. Rodriguez says although he doesn't necessarily agree with that argument against her, "I'm just not a fan. What I don't like about their party right now is they're inconsistent," he adds, in reference to the drama of the last few weeks. "You look at the Republican Party right now and they're ready to roll." Separately, one self-declared Republican voter I spoke to, who was cycling with his family, said he wanted to see fresh blood on both sides, hinting he would like to see both parties pick younger candidates. Why did Kamala Harris keep her remarks brief? As we've been reporting, Kamala Harris's remarks on the White House South Lawn were brief. In her address, she paid tribute to President Joe Biden and praised the NCAA athletes in attendance. The reason for the brevity, in her first appearance since President Biden stepped back from the race and endorsed her to take on Donald Trump in this year's election, and with the world watching, is that the vice president would have been limited in what she could say about her own campaign by rules against political campaigning at the White House. U.S. federal employees are governed by something called the Hatch Act, which dates back to the 1930s, External. It rules that federal employees may not engage in political activity while on duty, in the workplace, wearing a uniform or official insignia, or in a government vehicle. A quirk of the law is that the president and vice president are not subject to it, External, but all of the White House staff are, and for this reason would not have been able to help with the setup for the speech. Here is the summary of Kamala Harris backed by Nancy Pelosi as key Democrats line up to endorse vice president as follows. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris makes her first public appearance since President Joe Biden left the 2024 race on Sunday, July 21st. She praises Biden, saying she is deeply grateful for his service to our nation. More leading Democrats are backing Harris as the party's new presidential nominee, as her campaign sees a surge in donations. Former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi says her support for Harris is official, personal, and political. Biden had faced weeks of increasing calls to step aside. He'll stay on as president for the rest of the term. But Donald Trump has echoed other Republicans, saying if he can't run for office, he can't run our country. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance makes his first solo appearance on the campaign trail shortly, with a speech in Ohio. Okay, viewers, we hope to be back soon on more trending story. Can Kamala Harris beat Donald Trump? Thanks for watching and stay tuned.